Hello everyone, it's me again. I'm back. So today is probably one of the last days I can do actual full uploads. I'm still keeping the channel, but I have to go to this place called school. I don't know if you guys have heard of it. I have half days tomorrow, so I can probably still squeeze an upload in here or there. But I have to go to school now, if you get the reference. Um, so I thought I'd make one last video. Maybe I'll make one later today. Probably not though. So I wanted to discuss a video and an idea, a concept and an idea I've had for quite a while. So we have for to find this video, we have to go all the way back to the beginning of American politics, which I find really interesting. You can go through at the time. So this is a trend that a lot of people have noticed happening over the last century. Specifically, we've seen it a lot in modern American politics too. And this is what I call the crossover trend. In case you haven't heard of it before, it's a trend that every time the White House flips parties, the party that won the White House wins the state they did not win the last time they won the White House. And I did the math. The trend has actually been proven true for quite a while. And in case you don't understand that, because it kind of sounds a little complicated, it's not, don't worry. So we can take an example. In 2024, Donald Trump flipped the White House from the Democratic Party and won Nevada. This is a state he did not win the last time he won the White House. Back in 2016, he did not win the state of Nevada despite getting the White House. And if we want a Democratic example, that might be a little bit easier. In 2020, Joe Biden flipped the White House from Donald Trump. And the last time a Democrat had the White House was Barack Obama in 2012. And Joe Biden flipped the states of Georgia and Arizona, which Barack Obama did not get in his 2012 or 2008 run. So we have to go all the way back to the dawn of time for America for this. So first, we're going to talk about 1788. And in 1788, we see no political party formed. We see George Washington. He gets all 69 electoral votes, as no one bothered to run against him. And then by 1792, we see he gains electoral votes on the map with new states like Kentucky. However, no one ran against him, so the trend does not start there. By 1796, the first two political parties formed, the Federalist and the Anti-Federalist, also known as the Democratic Republicans. Adams was a Federalist, Jefferson was a Democratic Republican. So Adams won with Jefferson as his vice president because they had a really weird rule back then. However, considering no parties were before that, we can't start the trend either. Same with 1800, where the party actually flipped for the first time. This is the first flip of a party. We see Democratic Republicans gained the White House and would continue having the White House all towards before 1824. We see all these elections, landslide sweeps, especially in 1820, where James Monroe won every single state and almost every single electoral vote, with the exception of New Hampshire, where one faithless elector voted for Adams. That'd be Quincy. I do believe it was Quincy. And then we come 1824. The Federalist Party has basically collapsed at this point. We see four Democratic Republicans all running against each other under different coalitions. So we can't say the trend starts here either. We see, even though we see Tom, no, Andrew Jackson wins the majority of states, the majority of electoral votes, and the majority plurality of the popular vote. We see, since he did not get the majority of the electoral college, we see this here. Neither four other candidates win in the first outright ballot. However, with some questionable, shady shenanigans, we do see Henry Clay and John Quincy Adams strike a deal, and that gives John Quincy Adams the electoral college, meaning he wins. However, since all four candidates were Democratic Republicans and Democratic Republicans had the majority before that, it doesn't count. Here we see the birth of the Democratic Party and the National Republicans. This is different than the GOP we know as today. However, still new party. Did not hold the White House yet. Jackson still had the White House. And we also see Democrats win in 1832 and win in 1836. Martin Van Buren does get the majority of electoral college votes. By 1840, we see the Whig Party. This party emerges as the new political party to replace the National Republicans. I think. Back check me on that. So we see here this trend does not start quite yet. As the Whig Party, this is the first time the Whig Party had actually, well, yeah, this is the first time they've ever won. However, we do go to the election of 1844. 1844, and we do see this is where the trend starts. Democratic Party does gain the Electoral College back from the Whig Party against Henry Clay, and they do flip one state. This is the state of Indiana. Then we see in 1848, the Whig Party gets back the Electoral College. However, this is one where we do have to loophole the law. It doesn't necessarily say flip states because not a single state flipped from 1840 to 1848. Not a single state flipped to the Whig Party. However, with the new addition of the state of Florida, we can bypass that trend. The trend does continue. By 1852, we see a lot more westward states like California, Texas, they can now vote in the Electoral College, but one state that did flip would be the state of North Carolina. This state, this with Pierce being the Democratic nominee, Democrats did flip the state. And then 1856, the Democrat Party does win another term. Democrat Party does get another office. How do I say it? Democratic Party wins. The end. And we actually see coalitions start to form. The Democrats by far win the South by huge margins, except in Louisiana and Tennessee. Republicans are dominating in New England and at least some of the Rust Belt. So 1856, and then we see the birth of the Republican Party in this election. Republicans, Fremont, and then we see Republicans win their first election in the 1860. The trend does not quite continue here as there's nothing to base it off of, as Republicans had never won a race before. Then we see through the Civil War, 1864, Republicans do win. Lincoln beats McClellan. Grant takes over and beats Seymour. And then we see back in 1872, Grant wins again. And then Hayes in the very, very controversial election of 1876. This is where a compromise was struck, as Louisiana, Florida, and South Carolina were very, very close and competitive states, all decide within the hundreds and thousands of votes. We saw if one of these states had gone to Tilden, he would have won the election. And then we see we say back because it was 200 years ago. We see James Garfield does continue a Republican streak and wins in this race. However, we do see Grover Cleveland flips the White House delegation to the Democratic Party in 1884, and we see he flipped many states, including narrowly flipped the state of New York. State barely gone for him, but as it did go for him, we do count it. By 1888, we actually saw him lose to Benjamin Harrison, who did flip the state of California from the 1880. But then Grover Cleveland, being the only president except for President-elect Donald Trump to win the race with two unconsecutive terms, he got the 271 electoral votes. And we take a look at the notes I wrote on my phone. He flipped a few states, including the state of Illinois. We also see coalitions, the South, deep blue South, the swing/Republican leaning in the New England area, and then we also see the Rust Belt pretty competitive as usual. And then in 1896, we see, 1896, we see William McKinley. He regains the White House back after Grover Cleveland cannot run for a third term, because he already served one before. We see he flips states from before in all of New England. Most of New England actually shifted towards him. And then the state of Kentucky. He barely got that state, but he still got it. 1900, 1904, and 1908 were very sizable Republican wins in the presidency with with Taft and Roosevelt. However, when we go to 1912, we see Democrats sweep across the entire nation. A lot of states shifted towards Woodrow Wilson, but one state is a state that is slowly starting to become a bellwether in the state of Ohio. 1916, Democrats keep the presidency. However, by 1920, Republicans basically we see the coalitions continue to grow. We see the Republicans sweep the North, sweep the New England, sweep the West, and Democrats get the Deep South. We see Republicans shifted a lot of states. However, one state is the state of Tennessee, being one of the only Republican states in the Deep South. 1924, Republicans hold on. However, 1928, this is one of the last Republican victories right before the Great Depression and New Deal start. Herbert Hoover. However, with the Great Depression hitting in 1929, we see Franklin D. Roosevelt win the entire country, basically. He wins almost the entire country. However, he does win the most populous state at the time, the state of New York, from which Democrats did not win last time they had the White House. We see 1936, 1940, 1944, and 1948 all being Democrat keeping of the White House. However, I would like to talk about the election of 1948. So this election, considered an upset by most people. Most newspapers actually did print out Dewey winning the election the day before it happened. Imagine in 2024 if someone printed an article saying Kamala Harris has won the election a day before it happened. You guys just know there would be so much voter fraud claim if that happened from both parties, I would argue. And then we go into Republicans winning back control. Eisenhower beats Adlai Stevenson, and once again, a huge sweep. We see similar coalitions, the West, New England, the Rust Belt, the Democrats, South. And we also see continuation in Tennessee being one of the only states to buck the Southern trend. He did flip one state. Actually, it was really only one state, too, actually. He flipped Massachusetts and Rhode Island, which both of those states had not gone to the Republicans last time they won the White House. 1956, he also continues his streak of winning the White House. And then we have to go to 1960, where John F. Kennedy faced Richard Nixon, the vice president of the Eisenhower administration. And we take a look. He had won, once again, the most populous state in the entire nation, the state of New York. Lyndon B. Johnson continues in a landslide victory. However, we do see coalitions switch. We see the Deep South voting for the Republican Party because, Johnson support of the civil rights did not really go well with the South. We did see huge margins. He didn't even qualify for the ballot. Johnson did not even qualify for the ballot in the state of Alabama. We saw in 1964 that, however, by 1968, Republicans flipped back the White House with Richard Nixon, and we saw he flipped numerous states, including the state of North Carolina, proving that it was really just the Deep South of these few states that really that were very interesting. We also see the Southern Party switch happen around this time. By 1972, we see the entire nation, except for D.C., which Nixon, by date, has the best Republican performance in D.C., getting 20% of the vote, and Massachusetts, where George McGovern won by 9%. We saw in this election the nation, even the Deep South, reverted back to its Republican state and would arguably go back to its Democratic state not arguably, it did go back to a Democratic state in 1976 with Jimmy Carter. First of all, Georgia, we saw Alabama, Arkansas. We saw all those states go to him, and he flipped the Deep South back to the Democratic Party. And then in 1980, Republican landslide to another Republican landslide. We didn't really see many states flip to the Republican Party, except for the state of Massachusetts. Ronald Reagan barely won this race. He did still win it, though, meaning that Massachusetts was the only race that flipped to the Republican Party that year. Then in 1984, we saw the trend continue. 1988, Republicans did hold on. And then we saw 1992, the first Democratic victory in a presidential race since 1976. We did see the states of Nevada flip to the Democratic Party. We've also seen other states flip to the Democrats. But yeah, we also saw Nevada. Democrats hold on. And then in 2000, we see Republicans get a new coalition. We see West Virginia, because we have to go back in West Virginia. We see West Virginia pretty blue, actually. But then we saw coal Appalachian voters become a core of the Republican Party and vote for George W. Bush. In 2004, we saw those trends continue, expanded his margin, especially in the Deep South. We've seen the Southern Party switch. Deep South got significantly Republican, while the Rust Belt and New England, we haven't talked much about New England and the West, shifted significantly towards the Democratic Party. In 2008, we did see, with the help of Obama being the first African American elected to the Democratic ticket, and also the unpopularity of the Bush administration, the recession that happened in 2008, we saw Obama win states such as Indiana, which was a Republicans had regained that state back, and also North Carolina, signifying that maybe Republican gains in the Deep South weren't to last forever. We also saw in 2012, Democrats kept on. However, they did lose Indiana and North Carolina. By 2016, we talk about 2016, we do not 2016, we do not see Democrats do not flip a single state from 2008, which many Democrats thought they had a chance back in North Carolina. Democrats thought they could pick off that state. They can pick off the, at this point, bellwethers in Ohio and Florida. Iowa did not happen. However, Republicans outperformed expectations nationwide, getting Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania for the first time since 1988, with Michigan and Pennsylvania, and 1984 in the state of Wisconsin. And by 2020, we had truly seen that black voters in states like Georgia and North Carolina weren't to stay Republican for much longer, as those Georgia and Arizona became states that voted for Joe Biden for the first time since the 1900s. I say that when realistically speaking, it was 1992 and 1996. And then we go to today. Well, not today, like last month. Yeah, it was last month. But also, guys, congratulations. We only have to wait 11 days for the inauguration. So, we see here Republicans gain one singular state in the state of Nevada from 2016, meaning this trend has lasted since 1844. If we do the math on how long this trend has lasted, we take a look, 2024 minus 1844. This trend has lasted for 180 years, which is absolutely insane to think about. 45 election cycles in a row. Ever since the two parties started, we saw 45 elections. So, the reason I make this video is because, as unlikely as it is with how polarized the nation has become, we do see there's a chance the Republicans or Democrats could gain a state they did not win back in 2016. 2020 or 2024. Democrats, their best opportunity to continue the trend would be in North Carolina, while Republicans' best trend continuers would be probably in New Hampshire, Minnesota, New Mexico, or Virginia, or maybe New Jersey. Democrats, I guess you can argue maybe states like Maine second, Texas, Florida, Alaska. But yeah, so that's the video today. Bye, everyone.